Good morning. Today is the 2nd of Kislev and the 15th of November. We're up to the fourth reading of Toldot. The fourth reading is about another one of the big problems in the land of Israel, treaty making. And in this case, after he's successful with his wells that we talked about yesterday, Isaac is approached by Avimelech again. Avimelech is like, the name Avimelech, the word Avimelech is a title. It's like Mr. President. It's like Pharaoh. It doesn't indicate the name of the individual. It's just a title. So it means, my father was a king, or my father is a king. Maybe it's referring to some god or something like that. In any case, the king of one of the Philistines comes to him again, and we want to make a vow between us and you. This is a repeat performance of what Abraham did. In fact, we will see next week that one of the explanations in the Medrash, one of the explanations the sages give for why Jacob left Beersheba, the land of Canaan, and traveled up to Haran was not just because he was told to do so by his parents, and not just because he was fleeing Esau. A third reason that's given is because he did not want to end up making another treaty with the Philistines. And he knew that each time that he makes these treaties with them, his grandfather had, Abraham had, it was for 4 generations, and Isaac here makes another treaty, and this one is again for another 3 generations. So now we have 7 generations worth from Abraham, and indeed it was only 7 generations later that the Israelites came out of Egypt and returned to the land of Canaan, to the land of Israel. So one of the explanations that the sages give is he's fleeing from this. He doesn't want to get into this never-ending cycle of creating treaties with them, these vows that I won't ever hurt you or do anything to you. And, well, what can I say? History just repeats itself. But Avimelech comes, and in the end, he blesses Isaac. And he says to him, "Let us make a covenant with you that you will do us no evil, just as we did you no harm. And just as we treated you only with kindness, and let you leave in peace." Tongue in cheek, right? "Now you are blessed by God." These last words, Ata Baruch Hashem, now you are blessed by God, are what we're going to focus on. What is it? When you say it in Hebrew, listen to how I'm saying it. Ata Baruch Hashem. Now, if I was a Yemenite, or if I was Iraqi, I would say it like this: Ata. I don't use the guttural ayin, so you don't hear it by me. But it's 2 different words. One means now, Ata. The one means you, Ata, with an aleph at the beginning. If you can look at it, it's Genesis 26, verse 29, the very last 4 words. So you is Ata, with an aleph at the beginning, and then tav and hey. Ata is now. You now are blessed by God. And now is Ata with an ayin. They're both guttural letters. The aleph is lighter, the ayin is deeper. Ayin is like ayin. You sort of like push it out from a deeper place. What is this? What's interesting about this is that we have these 2 words, you and now. On the face of it, why are they even similar? Why? The only difference is in the first letter, the aleph and the ayin. So what we're going to look at today is that there are many such pairs of letters, of words, that have only a difference of an aleph or an ayin. But first we'll look at it from the point of view of the numerical relationship between Aleph and Ayin. Aleph is equal to 1, Ayin is equal to 70. There's many appearances of a relationship between these two numbers also, between 70 and 1, and also between these two letters. The way this is all explained, the general principle that's taken out, and we'll see the particulars in a moment, the general principle is that the Aleph and the Ayin are actually related to one another, just as we just said, that they come from the same source in the gutter, in the throat. What is the relationship between them? The Aleph is considered to be the spiritual counterpart of the Ayin. The way that the Ayin is said, I said it's coarser, it's stronger. The Aleph is weaker. It's more spiritual. It's just air coming out. It's almost as light as the lightest letter, which is the Hey. The Hey is just air coming out. Aleph already has a little bit of a coarse sense to it, and then the Ayin is the coarse form of the Aleph. So we have here the Aleph and the Ayin. Another way of saying this, and this is how the Arizal explains it, Rabbi Isaac Luria, is that the Aleph is the inner essence of the Ayin. The Ayin is like standing on the outside, it's like the vessel, and the Aleph is the light that's coming into the vessel. The most beautiful example of this is the two words light and skin. It says that after Adam and Eve had sinned, God dressed them in garments of skin. But Rabbi Meir, one of the Mishnaic sages, who was also a scribe, it says that in his Torah scroll, the one that he wrote for himself, on the side, in the colophon as we call it, he had a little notation, and it said, not garments of skin. He took the word skin, which is or, ayin, vav, reish, and he wrote on the colophon, aleph, vav, reish, meaning garments of light. What did he mean to say? That what God had dressed them with after the sin was the coarse form of what they had been dressed in before the sin. And if you remember, we talked about this in relationship last week to the notion of telepathy, of being able to affect someone with our thoughts. That when a person has this garment of light, which is called the garment of chashmal, which is just this secret word, mysterious word from Ezekiel's vision of the chariot. When a person has this garment, then they are considered to be like Adam before the sin. And in fact, we're constantly, as we go through life, in a very real sense, this is also the Tanya of the last few days. If you keep up with the daily Tanya, he's discussed this. With all the good deeds that a person does, with all the commandments that we perform, we're reconstructing that light garment, that garment made out of light that Adam and Eve had before the sin. And after the sin, God dressed them with skin, with garments of skin. So literally, the garments of skin are that we wear clothing, and at that time they made their clothing perhaps out of the skins of animals. That's what the explanation is. But it also means garments of skin, meaning that the skin on us is indicative of us not being, if to quote Yoda, luminous beings are we, right? We really are luminous, but we can't see it because we're so coarse on the outside. We think we have an external skin, and it's thick, and we don't feel the illumination from within, the soul from within. So it's really a question of where does the light come from? Does the light emanate from within us, and then the garment is one of light? Or does the light come from the outside, and then people get tanned because the skin is the one collecting the light, as it were? By the way, this is not to be seen as something negative only. In the future, there is an explanation that we will live off the light that's not coming from within, but rather the light that's coming from God. To say it another way, I'd say it like this, that when you are luminous from the inside, you stand the chance of not recognizing that light is coming from God. You could think of yourself as being the luminous being. So the idea of God dressing us, as it were, in coarse, in opaque skin, is to make us sensitive to light that comes from the outside, until we are ready once again to have garments of light, and to recognize that even the light that's coming from the inside is really a reflection. It's really coming from God. By the way, this is, I think we've talked about this in the past. There's a whole book in Chassidus dedicated to this topic. It's called The Two Luminaries. And there he explains that when we say that the sun and the moon were originally the same size, what we mean to say is that the moon was not just, even now it looks the same size. They look to us the same size. So he notes this and he says, really what it means is that the moon seemed luminous. How could the moon seem luminous? It doesn't have its own source of light. And again, I think we've talked about this in the past. He says the moon was like pure crystal. And so whatever light was coming from the sun, the moon was always fully illuminated. It was always giving off all the light. Again, the reason we see the moon wax and wane is because the moon is opaque, so the sun only hits it at an angle, as far as we're concerned. So we see only a tiny portion of the moon. But if the moon was entirely transparent, then think about it. Any light that would hit it from any direction would illuminate all of it, and then it would look like everything, like the moon is always full. It would never be partially seen. We would see all of it at the same time. Anyway, let's talk about a few examples of this relationship between Ayin and Aleph, between 70 and 1. So the most well-known one is, of course, the 70 nations and the nation of Israel inside. But we have many of these. It's also the 70 archetypal languages, and Hebrew, which is the inner core of all the languages. There's been a lot of studies done on, linguists don't like chapter 10 in Genesis. I think I've told you in the past that this is changing. And the more research is done, and the more they try to understand basically how languages developed, it seems more and more that the Hebrew or Proto-Hebrew is the language from which all the other languages came. Again, if you talk to a linguist today, they're not there yet. There's a lot of ways to go, but there's more and more understanding of this. Then we have the Sanhedrin. The Sanhedrin is the high court that the Torah appoints, has 70 members, 70 sages, and one sage. The one sage in the middle is called either the Av Beit Din, the head of the court. He's also called the Wondrous One, Amufla Sheba Senedrin, the one who's wondrous. He seems to be something special. So in the time of the Torah, this was the 70 sages that Moses gave from his spirit. He put his spirit upon them, and Moses himself. Moses continued to have a special stance. So you had 70 and 1. In our verse, we need to finish. So let's look at our verse again. Ata. What does that mean? You and now. The idea here is that if you look at this notion of now, what is now? Now is the present. What do you mean the present? Why is it called the present? By the way, this works both in Hebrew and in English. But why is it called the present in English? Are you giving someone a present? No, it comes from the word presence. That something is present. Who is present in the present moment? So the deep meaning is, again, the now is with an ayin. That's the external, the present moment. In every present moment, there is the you, God. The Ata, Baruch Ata Hashem, blessed are you, God, who is present in the present moment. So the one who's present here is the divine presence. And that's a relationship in our verse between the word with an aleph and the word with an ayin. Again, the ayin is the external, that's the now, that's the present moment, and the you with an aleph that dwells inside every moment is the presence of God. Thanks for joining. Hope to see you tomorrow.